849 Bloomdaddy broadcasting live from D.C., so I saved the best for last. Christopher Hajec joining me right now, Director of Litigation, Immigration Reform Law Institute. Christopher, thanks for stopping by.
Sure, no problem.
Whenever you talk immigration and you talk immigration reform, it seems like it is lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Is that just a way to tie things up? Is that just a way to not to get any kind of decision made? I mean, you're the Director of Litigation, Immigration Reform Law Institute. Is that just the game plan?
Yes.
To keep everything stagnant?
Well, it's the big weapon they have.
Can I get you to get a little close? There we go. We got a lot of noise.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's the big weapon they have against Trump. I mean, the Democrats were not elected. Trump was. So they're trying to stop him with lawsuits. It's government by lawsuits, and it's that's why they're so desperate over the Kavanaugh hearings. I've heard that usually here at Feet to the Fire there are protesters outside the hotel. Well, there aren't any this year because I guess they've all been hired up by the for the Kavanaugh hearings,
which is a good thing for us, right?
Yeah. And it's they really need to rule through the courts because they have a very unpopular agenda, especially in immigration.
Well, there's a lot of litigation out there. I wanted to jump on sanctuary cities. Where does I don't think Pittsburgh's been termed a quote-unquote sanctuary city. I think the term may be welcoming city or what have you, but where's the litigation stand with sanctuary cities?
Well, there's a lot of things going on. We have a couple of lawsuits, our organization in Indiana, against welcoming ordinances that that we claim rightly violate Indiana state law and federal law. Jeff Sessions tried to impose a number of reasonable conditions on some funding for Philadelphia, and Philadelphia sued, and they won in the district court in a very wrong-headed opinion, and now that's on appeal. We're involved in that, defending the Attorney General.
When you look at the litigation, when you look at some of the decisions handed down by some of these federal judges and stuff, I think we're seeing a lot of liberal judges not interpreting law but making the law. Do you see that when it comes to a lot of this litigation involving illegal immigration? They're
making it up. They find a judge who will buy their fantasy view of the law, which they did say in the travel cases. They found a judge in Hawaii and they found a judge in Maryland who would do that, and then they look like they're making all this headway and stopping Trump and so forth, but when it finally gets to the Supreme Court, the result is diametrically opposed. And that's another reason why they're desperate about the Supreme Court. They really do not like what Trump is doing in his appointments.
What about when it comes to the detention of the illegal aliens at the border? We've seen the separation of the families. How much litigation is flying out of that?
Well, the main reason for that problem is something called the Flores Decree that the Clinton administration entered into, and it's been interpreted by the Ninth Circuit to mean that you cannot hold minors longer than a certain short period of time. Right. And even with their families. You can't detain families together, which is what Trump wants to do, detain them in humane conditions before deporting them. So you have to let the whole family go, and because you can't separate them. And it just encourages more and more people to make this incredibly dangerous journey over the desert and die. And almost all the minors get raped or otherwise abused, and it's just horrendous. And the Democrats don't have any problem doing that and keeping that going at all.
We sit here. I mean, I can go through countless pieces of paper over here that talk about the monetary aspect of illegal immigration. Has it ever been tabulated how much money is tied up in lawsuits regarding illegal immigration? And could you even take a guess, estimation?
Well, I know the left and George Soros is one of the principals.
Well, he's a billionaire, so he can throw it away.
Are spending millions and millions. Bringing a lawsuit usually costs $1 million. I mean, it's a really big lawsuit with appeals and so forth.
Right.
And they're bringing them all over the country. They are extremely well funded. It's a huge machine, and it's all been developed and put into place for a purpose. And they're trying to get our fundamental law changed.
Talking to Christopher Hajec right now, Director of Litigation, Immigration Reform Law Institute. Does it ever, whenever you sit there and you look at this, I mean, you're a guy who looks over rules, regulations, laws. whenever we have this illegal immigration debate, is it incredible to you that we even have it? I mean, that there are rules on the book, there are laws on the books, that a lot of this litigation is probably frivolous stuff, but because it's in black and white, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, but yet, it all comes down to interpretation, doesn't it?
It all does eventually, and it's just that there are interpretations that are much better than others. I mean, Judge Kavanaugh said at his hearing the other day, he said, if you're in my courtroom, if you have the best legal arguments, you win. Mm-hmm. And their legal arguments are just not the best, and they're trying to push it.
What about when it comes to DACA? What is the latest there? Is there any as far as litigation goes? Where's that? I mean, that's a never ending.
Yeah, it's being challenged in Texas before Judge Hainan, who by Texas and other states, who struck down DAPA, which included some DACA in it.
Right.
And now he declined to grant a preliminary injunction. But he also seems to agree that on the merits, DACA is unlawful. So at the end of the case, it seems most likely he would enjoin DACA, which would then be appealed, go to the Supreme Court, and hopefully that would be the end of it.
Right.
That cuts directly across all these other cases of these district courts, again, saying Trump can't rescind DACA. He doesn't have the discretion to rescind a discretionary program that Obama used his discretion to put in.
Everything comes down to discretion and interpretation. Does it ever get frustrating to you when it seems like the law is, again, in black and white, but yet somebody's taking it a totally different direction? I mean...
It's remarkable. And it's often, it's just a brain twister. You're just, how did they get there,
because they got there because they want to get there. I guess you could make an argument, to fit your, whatever your angle may be. I wanted to ask you this. We've only got about a minute and a half, though. This movement to abolish ICE. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. I don't think there have been any lawsuits filed, but do you think this is one that we'll see litigation over, or have we already?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I think that's more of a doomed political effort at this point. But if there were, it would be...
you think so you don't think that's one that'll make its way into the courts?
It would be impossible to argue that we can't enforce immigration laws under our Constitution.
Okay, well, that is refreshing to know, but somebody might interpret that a different way.
Yes.
Christopher, I appreciate you stopping by, my man. All right?
No problem. Thank you.
All right.